Good morning, football fans, and welcome to this Monday morning episode of Morning Kickoff, a weekly show where we cover all news football. I'm your host, Matt Whit, and today we are live on youtube.com/MattWhit on the Morning Kickoff YouTube channel. You can check us out every Monday and Thursday morning around 9 o'clock Central Time, or listen to all the pre-recorded podcasts wherever you get your podcast. Today is March 7th, 2022, and we are coming off of an excellent weekend of the NFL Combine. This is the NFL Combine where it looks like everybody in the class can run on a sub 4.5. I mean, this is a ridiculous fast class, the fastest receiver class in NFL history. Not only that, but we have defensive linemen who are 340 pounds now who can run a 4.8. So just an excellent class coming up. And we're going to talk a lot on wide receivers, not just the wide receivers in this draft, but we're going to be taking a look at free agent wide receivers today and where I believe a lot of these players will land in free agency. Now, again, like I said, this is an excellent wide receiver class and an excellent free agency class. So there's a lot of teams that will not take wide receivers in free agency and wait until the draft because it is just that good of a draft class when it comes to wide receivers. Very deep wide receiver class with outstanding stars coming up forward. And we're going to talk about all this on today's episode of Morning Kickoff. I hope you all enjoy. Do you enjoy listening to this podcast? If you don't, that's totally fine. But if you do and would like to help out, there will be a link in the description that will bring you to my merch store. At this store, we sell t-shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs, and all of the profit earned will go towards the production of this podcast. Thank you all, and enjoy the show. For the first segment, we're going to be taking a look at free agent landing spot, the top 10 wide receiver free agent landing spots. Now, we're coming off of a weekend where we have the fastest wide receiver class in NFL history in this upcoming class in the draft. Not only do we have a very deep and talented wide receiver class in this next draft, but this free agency class, when it comes to wide receivers, is one of the best I have ever seen, if not the best I have ever seen. We not only have the best wide receiver, the best current wide receiver in the NFL in this free agency class, but we have Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, expected to be Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Odell Beckham Jr., Antonia Brown, Allen Robinson, Michael Gallup. I mean, the list goes on of outstanding star wide receivers that are going to be in this free agency class. Now, before I do this, I just want to mention for a lot of you guys, there's going to be teams that are in desperate need of a wide receiver that are not going to take a wide receiver, at least a top 10 wide receiver in this next upcoming free agency class. Simply because they can easily find a wide receiver 2 in the first, second, third round of this upcoming class, in this upcoming draft, I mean to say. They can easily find one. For example, the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people have gotten mad at me when I say the Philadelphia Eagles might not take a wide receiver in this free agency, at least not a starting wide receiver in this free agency 2022. And while they desperately need a free agent wide receiver, while they desperately need a wide receiver to play alongside Devonte Smith, at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles can find someone in the first, second, and third round. With that being said, though, I mean, I believe the Eagles do have 3 first-round draft picks, so they don't need to take a wide receiver in this next upcoming free agency class. They really don't. They can find someone in the first round when you look at how many stars there are in this next upcoming draft class. One of the best I've ever seen. We're going to start it off with the best receiver in the NFL currently, Devonte Adams. Let the Devonte Adams sweepstakes begin, because this is a player who there is going to be a lot of teams that are going to want Devonte Adams and are not going to be able to get him. There is going to be one team, I believe, who is going to overpay for Devonte Adams. Overpay for Devonte Adams? What do you mean by that? He's the best receiver in football. He should be the top receiver paid, right? Yeah, I believe he will, and I believe he's going to be the biggest wide receiver contract we have ever seen should go to Devonte Adams, and that's what I believe is going to happen. And I think the Indianapolis Colts will make Devonte Adams the highest paid receiver of all time. Now, yeah, a tag and trade is very possible. I believe that the Packers should look to franchise tagging Devonte Adams if he wants to come back. I believe they should look to franchise tagging him. Even if Devonte Adams is franchise tagged, though, I do believe the Packers will trade him away just because it's time for the Packers to look to the future. Now, yeah, they can try to reload this offseason going again next year, especially when you look at how weak our division is. It's very possible, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it's going to happen, and it's going to really depend on if Aaron Rodgers wants to go. Now, Indianapolis Colts, I believe the Colts will overpay for Devonte Adams. They will pay all of their money to Devonte Adams looking to trade for Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be the Colts trying to tell the Packers to trade Rodgers to them, say, yeah, we'll give you Carson Wentz contract, we'll take on Rodgers contract, and Indianapolis Colts will just own their division. I mean, let's not forget that division is they have the Texans and they have the Jaguars in that division. So that's 4 wins right there for them. And outside of that, they can definitely sneak out of that division, win the division, and maybe make a Super Bowl run next year if they are able to get Tay and if they are also able to get Rodgers. Now, this is going to be the Indianapolis Colts trying to compete with Broncos here, because right now, if there's one team that I believe will get Rodgers, it will be the Broncos. But as long as the Colts get Devonte Adams, they will be in the sweepstakes for Rodgers and can definitely compete for a Super Bowl next year. And that's why I think the Indianapolis Colts will spend just about all of their money on Devonte Adams this free agency. Next up, we have Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, I believe, will go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris Godwin's already a free agent. Can you... It's this last 4 years of football have went by very fast. It's hard to believe that these this draft class is 2017 draft class, I believe it is. They're already all entering for agency. So Chris Godwin, 26 years old, very young receiver coming out of Tampa Bay, has played the last 4 years with them and now is finally hitting free agency. Now Tampa Bay is in a very tough situation. Obviously, like Tom Brady said that he's going to retire. Even if he comes out of retirement, I don't think Brady will actually go back to playing with Tampa Bay. With that being said, they have no idea. I mean, with Antonia Brown obviously being gone now, what's going to happen with Gronk? I mean, they really don't know. At the end of the day, Mike Evans is still going to be there, but who's going to play alongside him? Tyler Johnson from here in Minneapolis, Minnesota? Maybe he'll be their wide receiver too next year. But you look at Chris Godwin, and I don't believe he will return with Tampa Bay. I think they will try to give him another contract, but Godwin will go and get paid somewhere else. What other team should pay him more than the Jacksonville Jaguars? Right now, the Jaguars love to run their 11 personnel, and it's not working. It's not working. A lot of people are grading Trevor Lawrence off his rookie season, saying, oh, this guy looks like a bust. Trevor Lawrence went to the worst team in the NFL, and you're calling him a bust after his rookie season? Let's not grade him too high. Let's not forget Peyton Manning and Drew Brees also had bad rookie seasons. So Trevor Lawrence, if they want to get the best out of him, they have to beef up that offensive line. They have to give him better playmakers. Now, this is not me saying that DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, this is not me saying that these are bad targets for him. I know they have a lot of depth at wide receiver, but at the end of the day, they need that star wide receiver one, and Chris Godwin could come in there and be by far their most targeted receiver. And I'm sure Trevor Lawrence would love to have Godwin on his team. Godwin is still young. He's just 26 years old. You put him on a 4-year contract, you can just build a good connection right there. Because if there's one thing, when I watched Trevor Lawrence play last year, he didn't have that connection with his receivers that Gardner Minshew had with like DJ Chark. Or there was not that same wide receiver to quarterback connection that we saw with the Jaguars in the past. So yes, I believe the Jaguars are desperately needing a wide receiver, and they have a lot of money, so they can make Chris Godwin a top 5 wide receiver paid if they wanted to. It is a perfect spot for him to go. Next up, we have a player who's not technically a free agent quite yet, and that is Amari Cooper. At this point, there's no question that the Cowboys will release Amari Cooper. Now, your first thoughts are, well, why would Amari Cooper go from the Cowboys? I mean, he's one of the best receivers in football, and he looks great with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are still a Super Bowl contending team, and with Amari Cooper, they can be. Well, if they do release Amari Cooper, it will save them a lot of money. And once you look at that contract, you'll realize why the Cowboys are looking to get rid of Amari Cooper, especially when they have CeeDee Lamb and Cedric Wilson are both on the rookie contracts, I believe. So there's really no reason for them to pay Amari Cooper. But you know who will want to pay Amari Cooper? The Cleveland Browns. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are interested in getting a new wide receiver. The Browns are also going to release Jarvis Landry. So once the Browns release Jarvis Landry, I believe they'll save him $15 million. Once the Browns release Jarvis Landry, they just lost Odell. There's nobody. There's nobody in that wide receiver group. I mean, this last year, due to COVID, they were signing players off of the streets. Browns desperately need a wide receiver, and there's no question that they will take one of the top wide receivers in this next free agency class. And I believe it's going to be Amari Cooper. The Browns have already reportedly talked with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Allen Robinson, and some others, according to Howie and Jackson. Now, I'm not sure who those people are, if they're credible sources, but according to what I've seen, the Browns are in the search for a new wide receiver, and will likely also cut Jarvis Landry. Now, Jarvis Landry didn't make this list, but again, Jarvis Landry's not going to be with the Browns next year. Going to be completely honest, it's not going to happen. Next up, we have Mike Williams. Mike Williams, wide receiver with the Chargers, will not leave the Chargers. It's not going to happen. Now he's set to hit free agency, whether he gets franchise tagged or not. I mean, Mike Williams should not want to leave Los Angeles, first of all, and Los Angeles should not want to get rid of Mike Williams. I mean, that connection between Justin Herbert and Mike Williams is unmatched. There's no way he's going to go to another team and have a quarterback that makes him look as good as he did this last year. It's just not going to happen. Mike Williams is not going anywhere. He's not leaving Los Angeles. The connection between Herbert, Mike Williams, and having Keenan Allen on that team and Austin Eckler, I mean, that's an elite offense right there. And the Chargers desperately need Mike Williams if they want to continue to compete in a division where they have Patrick Mahomes and maybe Aaron Rodgers coming to town. Okay, that AFC West with Aaron Rodgers, if he goes there, it's going to be by far the toughest division in football. I mean, they should easily, the Chargers have the money to pay for Mike Williams. And while their main focus should be defense this offseason, they definitely want to keep Mike Williams for what he did for this team, his team the last year. Another player who should not want to leave Los Angeles is Odell Beckham Jr. Now, a while earlier this year, I have talked about Odell leaving the Los Angeles Rams simply because they have a very deep wide receiver group with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp obviously being their starting two receivers. Outside of that, Van Jefferson has really stepped up, and then you have Odell. So you have a lot of elite wide receivers, and I've talked about how Odell will likely leave the Rams. Now, looking back on it, Odell and the Rams organization have already talked about running it back. Odell has said that he wants to run it back. Rams have said that they want to run it back. So at this point, there's no question that, I mean, they're going to at least try to work out a deal. I believe that the Rams and OBJ will try to work out a deal, and it will go through, and the Rams will have Odell back on the roster in 2022. Plus, he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl at this point. I mean, they're going to try to run it back. It'll likely be a one year deal, but they'll likely try to bring Odell back and bring Von Miller back to their team to try to win another Super Bowl next year. They're going to go a lot over the cap for that to be said. And then also they don't have a first round draft pick. I mean, when was the last time the Rams have had a first round draft pick? Next up, I believe this is the 5th best receiver in this upcoming class, or 6th best, Antonia Brown. Okay. Antonio Brown has been one of the best receivers I have watched play football live. He has. One of the best. I'd actually put him top 5. Yeah, nobody should want Antonio Brown at this time. I mean, he's not talked about retirement, or at least from what I've seen, he hasn't mentioned that he's going to retire. Yeah, nobody wants him. Okay, let's be honest. I mean, not only is he 34 years old, but he has terrible, his character is awful. I mean, it just shows how important character is. Antonio Brown should have been a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He should have been one of the best receivers in football. But his Antonio Clown, I mean, his behavior has ruined that. So I believe he will not play for an NFL team this upcoming season. And after the season, we'll mention that he wants to return to the NFL. This is my prediction right now because this is a very Antonio Brown prediction. He doesn't play for a team this upcoming season because he's not going to get top dollar. A year from today, we're going to talk. Antonio Brown's going to say that he wants to return to the NFL, and it's not going to happen because I don't believe anybody should want Antonio Brown. I don't care who you are. If he couldn't work with a team that had Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, he's not going to work with any team because that team, if you have a bad character with Patriots, you're going to have a bad character with every team. For that reason, I think he's actually going to play for the USFL in a couple of years. I think the USFL is going to be a little more greedy to try to get some more attention, and this will definitely help them signing Antonio Brown because if there's one thing Antonio Brown does, he gets attention whatever happens to him. Next up, we have Allen Robinson, maybe the most underrated receiver in this class. I believe Allen Robinson will go to play with the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons are in a very interesting situation because Falcons can easily try to go for a rebuild here, but they shouldn't want to. I mean, the Falcons should not want to go for a rebuild. I mean, Tom Brady just retired. He's leaving your division. Sean Payton's leaving your division. The Saints are completely screwed in their salary cap. Saints are going to lose Marcus Williams and Terron Armstead this upcoming free agency. Not to mention the fact that the Saints aren't even a good team in the first place. So they're losing a lot of these pieces that they had, and they're losing Jameis Winston as well. So they're losing a lot of these pieces, and your division is wide open. Who knows what's happening with the Carolina Panthers, too? I mean, the Falcons, it is their turn to own their division, and they desperately need Matt Ryan to have a number 1 target because this last year, it wasn't Calvin Ridley or Kyle Pitts. Surprisingly, Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts were not their number 1 target. It was Cordero Patterson, who might not be with their team this next year. So it's going to be interesting to see. So having Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson, if he returns, like that is so many elite playmakers to have on your offense for Matt Ryan to work with, and they should own their division and actually be one of the best offenses this next year. And it has to do with the fact that they're going for a new coaching staff because their last coaching staff did not get it done. It's good to know they have some better offensive minds in that locker room, and this could definitely help them out. Now, Allen Robinson, would he be their number 1 target if they have Ridley and Pitts? I don't know, but they should look to bringing in someone else, and who better than Robinson? Maybe they look to the draft as well. This is possible, but but I believe Robinson would fit perfectly with the Falcons offense. Next up, Michael Gallup, another receiver from the Cowboys who will likely leave. It's going to be interesting because the Cowboys getting rid of Amari Cooper, they could be looking to bring back Michael Gallup. I don't know if that's even going to happen because of how many teams are desperate for a wide receiver one. And if Michael Gallup can be a wide receiver one somewhere else, why would he want to stay with them? I mean, it's possible. Don't get me wrong. They could definitely pay him. They have the money to pay for Michael Gallup, especially if they release Amari Cooper, which I believe at this point is evident. If they release Amari Cooper, they have the money to bring back Michael Gallup. At the end of the day, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, and they can just bring in someone in the draft. This is a draft where you could find a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds and plug him in as a starter day one. I mean, this upcoming wide receiver class is elite, and especially with that Cowboys offense, you don't need to bring Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup back. You don't need either of these playmakers on your offense anymore. You really don't, especially when you have arguably the best running back duo in football. Second best. I mean, Browns have that by a long shot. Second best running back duo in football. So I believe Michael Gallup will go to one of these younger teams as he's a very young receiver. He only just finished his rookie contract. I believe he's going to go to play with the Chicago Bears. Bears are desperately in need, just like the Jaguars. Bears need to help their offensive line and give their young quarterback more playmakers to work with. So like I talked about how Chris Godwin going to play with the Jaguars, how he would benefit Trevor Lawrence tremendously being his number one target. The Bears are in the same situation where they have their year 2 quarterback now, and he just finished his rookie season with absolutely nobody to work with. I mean, Allen Robinson was a terrible receiver this last year. Bears were one of the worst offensive lines this last year. So Jaguars and Bears are kind of in this parallel situations right now where I believe Michael Gallup and Chris Godwin are perfect fit for wide receiver ones for their young hopefully star quarterbacks, their young quarterbacks going into year 2. Bears are no question going to look to a receiver. Whether that's Gallup or someone else, Bears are signing a receiver this free agency class, no question. Next up, we have Juju. Now, I don't know how I kind of more wanted Juju to fit in this top 10. I kind of wanted him to put in this top 10 wide receivers. Do I think he's a top 10 free agent wide receiver? Honestly, put someone else right there. I hate to be a Juju hater here, but okay, let's be honest. Juju's not going back to the Steelers. Steelers fans, you're not getting Juju back. It's not going to happen. I know a lot of you Steelers fans might have bought a jersey, might have bought a Juju jersey, might be an avid listener to his TikTok or whatever you call it, an avid viewer to his TikTok. Yeah, but Juju at the end of the day is the 3rd best receiver, maybe 4th best receiver on that Steelers team. This is a Steelers team with Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and then maybe Juju number 4. Okay, I hate to be the Juju hater. I think he's a great guy, but let's be honest. He's not as good as a lot of people are saying that he is. He is arguably the 4th best receiver on that Steelers team. And don't forget, this is the Steelers team that can draft someone in the 7th round. They're going to end up being in the top half of wide receivers in football. I mean, this is a Steelers team that just doesn't miss on receivers. No way are they going to bring him back. It's not going to happen, Steelers fans. It's not going to happen. He's going to go to be a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 somewhere else. I picked the Jets. Just like how I mentioned with the Chicago Bears having Justin Fields, with the Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe the Jets are in the same situation where they have a quarterback. They got their quarterback last year. He's going into his 2nd year, and he is nobody. I mean, his offensive line is garbage. I guess the Jets' offensive line has gotten a little bit better these last few years, but it's still not a great offensive line. Their playmakers are buns. I mean, Jamison Crowder is still their starting wide receiver. He's healthy. What, a third of the games? So at the end of the day, they definitely need a new receiver, and the Jets are another one of those teams that should look to signing a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. And on top of that, drafting a receiver in the first 3 rounds. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't just have one good receiver. You need multiple great receivers. As this is a pass-heavy league, especially when you have Zach Wilson, and you're looking to get the most out of him, you got to look to another wide receiver. And Juju would fit perfectly onto that Jets team. He's going from the Steelers to the Jets, so not a very far drive for him. And lastly, we have DJ Chark. DJ Chark was one of the best receivers a couple years ago. Not anymore. I mean, he just came off of a terrible year, and this is why I believe he's a very undervalued player that you can definitely get for minimal money. And I have the Philadelphia Eagles here. Now, I mentioned how the Eagles previously this offseason, I said that they don't need to bring in a free agent wide receiver. But DJ Chark is a very underrated player that you can bring in. He's only 26 years old. He's coming, or will be 26 years old. He's coming off of his rookie contract and can go on to a team, and maybe he has that upside to be a star receiver still. Maybe he just wasn't it last year, but he has superstar potential. And DJ Chark can be that with the Philadelphia Eagles. Same situation where they have a young quarterback and need to give him more playmakers. Eagles fans, let's face it, you got to stop starting Reagor. You have to. I get it. Jalen Reagor was a first-round pick, and that's the only reason why he's had as much play time as he had. If Jalen Reagor was a fourth-round pick, he likely wouldn't be on the Eagles team anymore. Let's face it. Devonte Smith is your starting receiver, and you need someone to play alongside him. Who better than DJ Chark, who's a very undervalued player, who can even be better than Devonte Smith this next year? Gonna be honest, Chark is a very underrated player. He has superstar potential still. Just didn't have it last year, and I don't believe he'll go back to the Jaguars. I believe the Jaguars will look to someone else like Chris Godwin, who would be a massive upgrade from Chark. And Chark will likely go to play with the Eagles or someone else. I mean, I believe he's a very valuable wide receiver 2 to have. If anybody who gets him as a wide receiver 2 will be very lucky. Even if he ends up being a starting receiver still with the Jets or something like that, like that's a very possible solution as well. I believe the Eagles should look to bringing in a receiver in this year's draft or in this year's free agency. I believe there's no question that the Eagles are in desperate need of a receiver right now. Even after drafting a wide receiver in the first round the last 2 years, they still need receivers, because it's the Philadelphia Eagles. And yes, I do believe they will bring in DJ Chark. And those are the 10 landing spots for all of the top 10 receivers. I have Devonte Adams going to the Colts. Colts will make him the highest paid receiver in NFL history. Godwin going to the Jaguars. Godwin will get paid with the Jaguars as they need him. Cooper going to the Browns. Mike Williams staying with the Chargers. OBJ staying with the Rams. Antonia Brown going to the USFL in 2 years. Allen Robinson going to the Falcons. Falcons will take control of their division. Michael Gallup going to the Bears. Juju going to the Jets. Chark going to the Eagles. And that is my top 10. Let me know what y'all think about that top 10. Next up, we have Desmond Ritter. Yes, I love Ritter. I do love Ritter. Man, he's a freak athlete. I mean, if you like, I watched Ritter is one of those players that I did get to see quite a bit of in college because he was with Cincinnati. I did get to see quite a bit of Desmond Ritter, but man, we knew going into this day that man could move. That man could move escaping pressure. Freak athlete right there. And I'd love to have him on our team, on the Minnesota Vikings team. We'd likely have to wait. Hopefully he could fall to us. I just don't want to take it. It's so. See, here I have my mixed emotions about taking a quarterback. It's just like, I want the Vikings to swing on a quarterback. I want it to happen. But with that being said, now you have 3 quarterbacks in your team, and what happens if you trade Kirk? I mean, Kellen Mond, or are you going to start your rookie? At the end of the day, you have a lot more needs than a quarterback. We're a lot more from a quarterback away from competing. AJ Green says, I think Peterson is really good for Lawrence. Me too. See, I hated the idea of the Vikings signing Doug Peterson. And as a matter of fact, I didn't like the idea of the Saints signing Doug Peterson or a lot of these teams. I love him going to play with Lawrence, because if there's one thing Doug Peterson is good at, designing plays. That man can design plays that will work in Trevor Lawrence's favor, and definitely bringing in a starting receiver like Chris Godwin or anybody. I mean, I mentioned Chris Godwin here, but there's so many receivers that you have for options to be Trevor Lawrence's #1 target. And while we often talk about how bad the receiving core was last year, it was mostly due to injuries. Like, Chark gets injured every year. Laviska Shenault has gotten injured in his year so far. I mean, they ended up starting Laquan Treadwell. I mean, by the end of the season, they were starting Laquan Treadwell as a wide receiver too. I mean, I just like the Jaguars are in such a tough situation right now, where they need to spend money on offensive line, but they also need playmakers to where they can't fill all these needs, and they won't be while they have the first overall draft pick and will pick first in all 7 rounds. At the end of the day, they can't fill all their needs like that. So, still, the Jaguars, actually they're in a pretty good situation. If they bring in Chris Godwin, they're in a very good situation, because Godwin, although he was injured this last year, and you can call him an injury-prone player, has been healthy majority of his season so far. I believe the first 3 seasons he was healthy all games. I might have that wrong. I'll have to do my research on that. Is talking off of my mental pictures of what happened. But again, Godwin, definitely play. You can definitely continue to play on that healthy. Hopefully, he did suffer with an injury, so I guess you can call him injury prone. But should be their starting receiver, and Lawrence would love to be throwing to Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is so underrated. I'm sorry. Chris Godwin is a top, I might put him top 10 receiver in football. He should be a wide receiver one somewhere. And while he wasn't really with the Buccaneers and shouldn't want to return with the Buccaneers, I mean, let's be honest, if Tom Brady's not there, does Godwin really want to play with the Buccaneers anymore when he's not going to get as many targets as he would with the Jacksonville Jaguars? Yeah, he's going to have to go through rebuild with the Jaguars, but he's going to get paid and he's going to get the ball a lot more than he would if he was with Tampa. Ryan Donovan says Wandale Robinson from Kentucky is a dude I'd like to see on the Vikings. Let's search up Wandale Robinson. Wandale Robinson. You guys saw that our Daniel Falele, I'm not by no surprise, was the biggest dude in this upcoming draft class. All right, Wandale Robinson, wide receiver from Kentucky. All right, I'm definitely a huge fan of taking a wide receiver, especially in this receiving class. Now, yes, wide receiver is not the biggest need for the Vikings. Like I've said many times, I don't even care. I don't care who the biggest need for the Vikings is. I really don't. I care about taking whoever the best player available is. And if it is this guy, I want to get a receiver in the third round because there's going to be good receivers in the third round. 100% I'll take that and plug it in. We can have a wide receiver and even start him day one. I mean, there's no question that we're going to run a lot more 11 personnel this upcoming season. And that's an 11 personnel where you have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen on the outside. Now, Thielen will play with our team this next year. A lot of people are talking about trading him away. Yeah, I'd like to look to a trade. It's not going to happen. Thielen will be on our team next year. You have both those players playing on the outside, and you can throw another receiver inside the slot, rotate him in outside the numbers as well. I'd be a big fan of the Vikings bringing in another wide receiver. Huge fan, especially with maybe Thielen. Thielen's going to be on our team this next year, 100%. I believe there's no question. A lot of people say that, but he's going to be on our team this next year. After this, though, we can maybe look to trading him away and hopefully have a receiver that can step into his role. But yeah, big fan of the Vikings bringing in a receiver, especially in the second or third round, or any round. Any round. I don't care. I really don't care what round it is. I would love to have another receiver on our team. Blazing Woods 420 says, I think Michael Gallup will go to the Patriots. Yeah, that's a perfect spot, actually. That's a perfect spot because Michael Gallup is a perfect fit for the New England Patriots. Now, let's be honest, though. The Patriots are more of a taking players we barely know and turning them into stars. I mean, Patriots are just the best at free agency, and yeah, that's actually a good spot. Michael Gallup's a big body receiver who can make plays after the catch. That's exactly what works into the Patriots offense. You give Michael Gallup those 5-yard passes all day long, he's going to turn those into 25-plus yard plays. So, yeah, that would fit perfectly, especially when Mac Jones can't throw more than 20 yards. I'm sorry, Mac Jones is maybe the most overrated quarterback right now. How did he make a Pro Bowl? Okay, how does he make a Pro Bowl over Josh Allen? I mean, let's be honest. How does this guy even get into it? But still, yeah. That's a good fit. That's a good fit. I just don't think the Patriots with their current receiving core. Here, actually, I think I can... If I turn this, oh yeah, you can see my screen. If we go Patriots depth chart, like I think they're perfectly fine. I mean, they obviously need a wide receiver, but it's the Patriots. Like they'll make anybody work. Yeah, because Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne especially had a great year this last year, but they still have Matthew Slater. How long has Slater been on that team? Slater was on their team through their dynasty even, but having Michael Gallup's a perfect fit for that team. It's funny to see Matthew Slater on that team, and he's still dominant. N'Keal Harry, first-round bust right there. Michael Gallup is who N'Keal Harry should have been. Just a big body receiver who can make big-time plays, a great blocker, and could definitely fit into that offense. You would have Michael Gallup as your number one target. Outside of that, I mean, isn't Jonnu Smith kind of like a Michael Gallup? Like you can kick Jonnu Smith into wide receiver. You can throw 2 tight end sets as they've done a lot of 2 tight end sets, I formation. Like this is kind of how the Patriots run their offense. And Michael Gallup wouldn't get as many targets or with the Patriots as he would if he went to a team like the Chicago Bears. But still, yeah, that's a good fit. He's exactly who Bill Belichick wanted N'Keal Harry to be, basically. That's a good fit. AJ Green says, think Ritter makes it to the second round. I think so. I honestly believe he will. Because Desmond Ritter might have knocked it out of the ballpark this last weekend. But you look at the first round, and it's like, it's tough. Because it's really going to depend on... It's going to depend on the Lions at 32. I know it's the last pick in the first round, but I believe there's no question the Lions should look to a quarterback. And especially at the 32nd pick. So obviously they're not going to take a quarterback with the second pick because that'd be stupid. But them waiting until 32, maybe they will take Ritter. Maybe they will take Kenny Pickett. Maybe they will take Matt Corral. It'll depend on the Lions at 32, but I think it's very possible that Ritter does fall to us in the second round, especially with him not being him being kind of a sought after candidate right now. He'll have to go to the right system, and I believe if I was Desmond Ritter, I'd much rather want to play with the Vikings than I would with Detroit, who, yeah, I mean, Detroit's coaching staff isn't the worst, but at the end of the day, like, it's Detroit. Blazing Woods 420 says, hear me out. Cowboys send Amari Cooper to Jaguars, and then Michael Gallup to Patriots. Then Cowboys sign Juju. I am sure that the Cowboys will love to trade away Amari Cooper. Does anybody want to take on Amari Cooper's contract? I believe he's a top 3 most paid wide receiver right now. So yeah, I don't know if anybody would want to take on Amari Cooper contract, especially the Jaguars. I feel like the Jaguars should go more young receivers. I mean, it's still fine. I mean, the Cowboys would win 100% on both of those. They would win on both of those trades. And the Cowboys don't necessarily need to sign Juju as well. I think the Cowboys are in a situation where they want to move their money mostly to defense. They need to beef up that secondary especially. I believe that they want to move their money to defense and then that they can look to younger wide receivers. So they already have CeeDee Lamb and Cedric Wilson who can both be starters. It's just who's going to play alongside CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Juju's a possibility, but then again, this is a draft class where you can find receivers in the first 3 rounds and plug them in as a day one starter. Like, this is not a receiver class where you take a wide receiver in the first round and you have them sit the first 2 years. This is a receiver class like we had in 2019. 2019 receiver class was outstanding. I mean, Terry McLaurin fell to the 3rd round. I believe was that the year that DK Metcalf was a 2nd round pick as well? Like, you can find starting receivers and have them fall. And them fall to plug them in as your starters in week 1 or in the rookie season. So this is a very deep wide receiver class, a very fast wide receiver class, the fastest wide receiver class in NFL history. I mean, wide receiver position is so weird where, like, years ago you saw big wide receivers who kind of just made plays after the catch. But now with quarterbacks being able to throw over 50 yards, with quarterbacks making like 60 plus yard plays, I mean, you just look for wide receivers that can run past guys. You get wide receivers that run a 4-2. They're just running past receivers, and then you just throw deep. Like, you just have them run go routes all the time. I mean, look at a few years ago. You look at the 2020 draft class. Who were the top receivers in the 2020 draft class? I mean, we had Justin Jefferson too, but I'm looking at the top 3. We had Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and CeeDee Lamb. Out of those 3 players, I believe, no question, Jerry Jeudy was the most versatile receiver. He was the best route runner by far and could make plays after the catch. But Henry Ruggs was the first receiver off the board. Why? Because Henry Ruggs could run a 4-2, and all he had to do was just run past guys. All he had to do was make 50-yard plays for the Raiders offense. Now, obviously, what happened with him now, all he had to do was just run past guys, and that's the reason why he was the first receiver off the board, despite the fact that Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb were much more versatile players than Henry Ruggs was, and then we were able to get the best receiver in that draft class at 22, but no one knew that was going to happen until it happened. I love getting Justin Jefferson. I love that he's on our team. AJ Green says, have any thoughts on Willis changed after the combine? That dude's ceiling is so high, or he could be a huge bust, but I think it's worth the chance. 100%. 100%. Like I talked about this a little bit before. I talked about it more on Matt Corral than I did Malik Willis, but Malik Willis is like, if you've ever played Russian roulette, Malik Willis is like putting your money on zeros. It's like there's a likely chance, more likely than not, that he's going to be a bust. Let's be honest. We see a majority of quarterbacks that enter drafts. We see a majority of quarterbacks taken in the first round that end up not working out. But it's a huge hit. It can be a huge hit. Malik Willis has a massive upside and a very high ceiling. So Malik Willis can easily be a all-pro, Madden cover, I mean, MVP in the future. Like, you can see this, but you can also see the chance of more likely than not that he is a bust. For that reason, he's a big swing and likely a miss, and I believe he's going to be taken by the Carolina Panthers at 6. I don't see Malik Willis falling farther than that, because let's be honest, this is a quarterback position, by far the most valuable position, the hardest position to play in football. And if you can get that position locked down, you are set. So I believe there is no question that a team in the top 5 or in the top 10 is going to be willing to take that. Should the Vikings trade up for Malik Willis? I mean, it's possible. Like, yeah, we're not a quarterback away from competing, but a quarterback will help us compete for the next decade. Like, we desperately need a quarterback. And if we can get a quarterback, if we could get Malik Willis at 12, I would 100% take it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think after this last weekend, Malik Willis is a undoubted, undisputed top 10 pick. I think it's just going to happen. Ryan Donovan says, good call. Buddy Robinson is a second round talent and could easily fall into the third round. Yes, I would want, I really, really, really want the Vikings to get a wide receiver in the first few rounds. I don't think it's going to happen round one, and I'm totally fine with the Vikings not taking a receiver round one. As a matter, like I said many times, I just want it to happen based off of whoever the best player available is. And I'm hoping we can get a corner in the first round. Hopefully Sauce or Stingley or one of these names will fall to us at 12. And it's very possible these players will still be available. I've also talked about Kyle Hamilton. I mean, people are talking about Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, he might be the second best player in this upcoming draft class, but he's a safety. I mean, we see safeties fall all the time. He could easily be available at 12. And a matter of fact, if he's available at 12, he's still not even my top pick. I'd rather take a corner than him. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, he might be the second best player in this draft class. At the end of the day, he's not going to make an impact for a defense as a corner would, as having a lockdown corner would. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you look at all the starting safeties in NFL. I mean, you look at the best safeties. Are they that impactful for their team? No, they're not. They're not. I mean, who's the best safety right now? I really like Budda Baker as a strong safety. Yeah, he's a very good pass rusher, and yeah, he can make plays, but at the end of the day, he's not as impactful as having a lockdown corner would be for their defense. Still, I'm liking the idea of taking a corner safety somewhere like that in the first round. I want to get one of these fast receivers. Like, if there's one thing we learned this last weekend, everybody is fast. It doesn't matter what position you play. You run a sub 5.0. If you're if you're an offensive lineman, you run a sub 4.5 if you're a wide receiver. I mean, everybody in this class is fast. And I'd love to get one of those fast receivers. Like, just imagine. Okay, who's a fast receiver that we could possibly get at second round? I don't know. There's about 10 names. Just take a receiver in the second round, third round, somewhere around there. You just get one of these fast guys that just run pass players. You get Justin Jefferson, who's arguably right now, no, undoubtedly a top 3 receiver in football right now, and he can just be an elite playmaker on your offense as he's been these last 2 years and will be this next year. As he'll be might get over 13 targets a game. I mean, this is don't forget this. They're going to try to use him the same way they use Cooper Kupp. Justin Jefferson's going to get a lot of targets as he deserves that to be the case, and then we can get a receiver to play alongside him. If we do get a rookie receiver, though, it will likely not be in the first round. If we get a rookie receiver, they'll likely not get very many targets. I mean, let's be honest. There's only one ball. We already have a top 5 wide receiver duo, a top 5 running back duo. I mean, there's only one ball to go around. I don't see this receiver getting as many targets as he might have liked to, or as much as he would have went if he went maybe to the Jaguars or somewhere else. So I like a lot of these players. Fire Nisi says, what do you think of Bailey Zeppeli? We're going to Google him real quick. I haven't watched as much college football. I've watched a lot of Big Ten football. Go Gophers. I'm actually going to go, I'm going to try to get season tickets for the Gophers this next year. Quarterback. Kentucky quarterback. Where is he expected to go? He's not expected to go he's expected to go day 3 of the draft, right? If I have that right. I don't think he's maybe somewhere in the third round. I mean, yeah. See, here's the thing with quarterback is it's like the Vikings are in such a tough situation where we take a quarterback in the first couple rounds. I mean, or in the first few rounds, first couple days of the draft. At the end of the day, I mean, who's going to start? Who's going to be on a roster next year? Like we already have our backup quarterback in Kellen Mond, who can step up and be a star. I've talked about Kellen Mond's potential already, and can definitely step up into a starting role somewhere in the NFL in the future. And then we obviously have Kirk Cousins, who, let's be honest, Kirk Cousins is going to be our quarterback next year until we get offered the 6th overall draft pick from the Carolina Panthers. Kirk's going to be our quarterback next year. And I hate to say that, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Kirk's going to be our quarterback next year. Unless if Kwesi gets an offer that he cannot turn up, which is very possible. I'm not ruling out the possibility of Kirk being traded. I'm saying that I'm just going to stick with that until now, that we don't really have a quarterback that we can just easily plug in if we do trade away Kirk, if something like that does happen. Now, the Commanders have reached out to everybody. Washington, it's weird to call them the Commanders. Now, Washington has reached out to all 31 other teams and have asked for a quarterback already. And I'm questioning what they did with the Vikings, because did they really call up Kwesi? Did they really call up the Vikings and ask for Kirk back? I mean, what did because Washington is they've said that they have called up all teams. Do you think they asked for Kirk, or do you think they asked for Kellen Mond, or do you think that they just said we're available for trading for a quarterback? We need a quarterback. I think that's the most likely situation because I don't know if that organization would just call us up and say that they want Kirk back. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see a case where they would want to trade for Kirk, especially when they're not a quarterback away from competing. Now, them trading for Mond, then I like that. I do like that. Now, I'm big on Mond. I want him to be on our team, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you can salvage him for a second round pick, maybe no, you can't get a first round pick. If you can salvage him for a second round pick, 100%. Like we have a lot of needs in this team that we have to fill. And especially if you get that second round pick, you combine it, 2 second round picks, trade into the first round. Maybe you get Matt Corral, big upgrade right there. I mean, there's a lot of options that the Vikings have here where, yeah, we can find some of these. Desmond Ritter, Matt Corral. Like, these are players that I really like. Kenny Pickett, don't know. Kenny Pickett might have the best tape in college. Easily. I'm sorry. Kenny Pickett easily has the best college tape out of anybody. He has had the best college career. Let's be honest. But his upside is not there. It's not. This guy plays quarterback with 2 gloves on. Okay, like I don't want that to be the biggest red flag, but at the end of the day, like, not the biggest on Kenny Pickett. Not the biggest on Kenny Pickett. Yeah, he might have the best college tape. No, he does have the best college tape, but at the end of the day, I would rather have Malik Willis, or I'd rather have Desmond Ritter. I believe this last weekend, Malik Willis solidified himself as a top 10 pick. I've talked about maybe there won't be a top 10 pick for quarterback. No, it's going to happen. Malik Willis solidified himself as a top 10 pick. Desmond Ritter made himself an undoubted, undisputed first round or second round pick. Likely first round. The Lions are not going to pass on a quarterback number 32. Whether that's Kenny Pickett, whether that's Desmond Ritter, or whoever it is, the Lions got to take a quarterback at the 32nd pick, have him sit behind Jared Goff for a couple years, and will likely, hopefully, for their sake, be their future starter. If we look at Jared Goff's contract, if we look at his contract over the cap, he should be a free agent in 2 years if I have that right. 3 years. 3 years. Okay, so he has 3 more years left on his contract, and he's going to be, so after the season, he's a potential out after the season. So meaning that that they'll save more money than they would if they'll save more money than dead money, meaning he'll be a potential out after the season. So he's guaranteed $30.5 million this next upcoming season. So he's going to be their starting quarterback in 2022, obviously. After that, they can easily cut him, save themselves however much money that is, $47 million after. Yeah, $47 million of money they could save themselves by moving on from Jared Goff. Wow, that is a hefty contract. That is a very expensive contract for one of the worst quarterbacks in football. I'm going to be honest. Rams should have never have signed that. But at the end of the day, I mean, him being a potential out in 2023 is a big, big win for the Lions, bringing in a new young quarterback. And maybe they step in year 1. Jared Goff might go down with the injury. We see maybe Desmond Ritter step in as their starter. Maybe we see Kenny Pickett step in their starter. And Jared Goff would likely no longer be their contract more than 1 more year. We'll have to see, obviously, who their backup is. Because I believe right now, Lions depth chart, is their backup still, what's his face? No, Tim Boyle. Oh, I was going to say David Blau. So David Blau is still on their team. They have Tim Boyle as well. So, yeah, definitely need a new backup quarterback right there. I believe David Blau beat us 2 years ago, which was terrible. Or no, that was Chase Daniels who beat us 2 years ago. That was actually with the Bears. That's right. But still, I mean, it definitely need a new backup quarterback who can be their franchise guy, because let's not forget, this is the Lions. They're the Lions, all right? They've been in a rebuild since before I existed. The Lions have been in a rebuild since, 30 years ago? So, yeah, this is the Lions. I mean, obviously, they're looking to a new quarterback because they're always looking to new quarterbacks, new receivers, new everything. They have about 15 different needs every year. So, yeah, they should definitely look to a quarterback, and I don't see a case where maybe Ritter or one of these quarterbacks fall after 32. I just don't know if Kenny Pickett is even going to be a first-round pick. Like, yeah, he has the best tape in college, and typically you see people take whoever the pretty guy is, whoever got the best tape, whoever the most flashy player. But at the end of the day, I mean, if I was to put my money on it, I'd say Desmond Ritter. Kenny Pickett has a 90% chance of failure in the NFL. Gonna be honest. There's a 1 in 10 chance that he works. And then when you're looking at Malik Willis, again, I'd say that he has above 50% chance of him not working in the NFL. Why? Because a majority of first round picks don't work in the NFL. But when it comes to Malik Willis, I'd say he has around a 5 to 10% chance of becoming a star quarterback in football. And when I say star quarterback, I'm talking about like MVP caliber seasons in football. I believe Malik Willis has a very high upside, and I would love the Vikings to get him. I'm still on that Kirk trade where we can get the 6th overall draft pick. Imagine, okay, let's not get too far into that, but just imagine if we got the 6th overall draft pick. And then you look at this upcoming like quarterback class. Who can the Vikings play? I mean, if we get a quarterback in the first round and we trade away Kirk Cousins, who's going to be our starter? Are we going to start Malik Willis day one if we are able to get a quarterback like that? Are we going to start Kenny Pickett? I mean, Desmond Ritter? Are we going to start these players day one? I mean, I don't want to. I really don't. I really don't. I would rather have a quarterback and have them sit behind them, because this is not a first overall draft pick where you need to start a quarterback now because you're by far the worst team. Maybe we do sign someone like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been known to be a quarterback who's been able to pass on to the youngins, who's been able to be a transitional guy, as he's been for some time now. Another guy was with the who was the quarterback? Alex Smith. He's known to be the best of all time. Now, Alex Smith is now retired, as rightfully so, because injuries have ruined his career. Alex Smith is retired, so unfortunately we can't sign him. But having one of these transitional guys, I mean, Andy Dalton, he just did it with the Bears as well, where he was a transitional guy. There's a lot of quarterbacks that we could bring in, actually, the more I think about it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm looking more at corner. I'm looking more at wide receiver here, because while I do like a lot of these quarterbacks, I just don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen where the Vikings bring him in, especially for how high KOC is on Kirk Cousins as of right now. And let's not forget, that's the reason why he came here. One of the reasons why he came here was to coach Kirk Cousins and make the best out of him. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Morning Kickoff. I hope you all did enjoy listening to the show. If you did, be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast for more Minnesota Vikings and more football-related content. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Morning Kickoff. Have a great day.